Emma stared at her reflection in the mirror, her blue eyes searching for answers she knew weren't there. Her long silver hair fell in soft waves around her heart-shaped face, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within. As she traced the faint scar on her left palm, a birthmark she'd always found peculiar, a chill ran down her spine. Today was her 25th birthday, but instead of excitement, she felt an inexplicable dread. Across the city, in a dingy apartment reeking of stale cigarettes and despair, Olivia sat on the edge of her bed, her pale fingers tracing the identical scar on her own palm. Her raven-black hair hung in matted strands, framing a face that mirrored Emma's in structure but was marred by years of hardship. Dark circles underlined her haunted red eyes, which now gleamed with an otherworldly light. The twins, separated at birth, had led vastly different lives. Emma grew up in a loving, middle-class family, surrounded by warmth and opportunity. She excelled in school, made lasting friendships, and was now a promising young lawyer. Olivia, however, had been thrust into the foster care system, bouncing from one abusive home to another. Her childhood was a blur of neglect, violence, and betrayal, each experience carving away at her humanity. As the clock struck midnight, marking the beginning of their 25th year, a surge of energy coursed through both sisters. Emma gasped, clutching her chest as unfamiliar sensations flooded her body. Miles away, Olivia threw her head back in ecstasy, reveling in the dark power that now coursed through her veins. For years, Olivia had been making deals with shadowy entities, offering pieces of her soul in exchange for the power to exact revenge on a world that had wronged her. Now, on this fateful night, the transformation was complete. She had become a demon, her human form merely a vessel for the infernal energy that threatened to consume her entirely. Emma, always sensitive to energy she couldn't explain, felt a wave of nausea and terror wash over her. Vivid images flashed through her mind, scenes of destruction, chaos, and a face that looked eerily like her own, twisted in malevolent glee. She stumbled to her bathroom, retching into the toilet as the visions assaulted her senses. Across the city, Olivia stepped out into the night, her bare feet leaving scorch marks on the pavement. Her first victim was her latest foster father, a brutish man who had subjected her to unspeakable horrors. She appeared in his bedroom, her eyes glowing with hellfire. Before he could scream, she was upon him, her newly formed claws tearing into his flesh. Blood sprayed across the walls as she ripped him apart, savoring every moment of his agony. As dawn broke, reports of bizarre and gruesome deaths began flooding the news. Emma, still shaken from her nightmarish visions, watched in horror as the body count rose. Each crime scene was more horrific than the last. Bodies mutilated beyond recognition, walls painted with blood, and always, inexplicably, a single perfect handprint seared into a nearby surface. Something deep within Emma knew these atrocities were connected to her. She could feel a pull, an invisible thread tying her to the carnage. Her colleagues at the law firm noticed her distraction, the way her hands shook as she pored over case files. But how could she explain the impossible knowledge burning in her mind? As Olivia's reign of terror continued, she began to attract followers, lost souls drawn to her power and the promise of vengeance she offered. They gathered in abandoned buildings and dark alleys, their eyes glazed over with fanatical devotion. Olivia reveled in their worship, using their energy to fuel her growing powers. Emma, driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore, began to investigate the murders. Her legal training proved useful as she connected seemingly unrelated cases, all bearing the mark of her twisted sister. Late one night, as she pored over police reports she wasn't supposed to have access to, a name caught her eye: Olivia Jensen, a former foster child with a history of abuse and mysterious disappearances. The moment Emma saw Olivia's photo, everything clicked into place. The resemblance was undeniable, and the scar on Olivia's palm, identical to her own, confirmed what Emma had subconsciously known all along. She had a twin, and that twin was now a monster. Determined to stop the bloodshed, Emma delved into esoteric research, seeking ways to combat the demonic forces her sister had embraced. She found herself in seedy occult shops and clandestine meetings with self-proclaimed witches and exorcists. With each piece of knowledge gained, Emma felt a change within herself, an awakening of abilities she never knew she possessed. Meanwhile, Olivia's power grew exponentially. She no longer needed to physically touch her victims to destroy them. With a mere thought, she could inflict unimaginable pain or snuff out a life from miles away. The city cowered in fear. Law enforcement was overwhelmed, and chaos reigned. As Emma's search for answers intensified, she began to experience blackouts. She would come to her senses hours later, with no memory of where she'd been or what she'd done. Unbeknownst to her, during these episodes, her own latent powers were manifesting. While Olivia had chosen a path of destruction, Emma's abilities were rooted in protection and healing, a cosmic balance to her sister's chaos. The twins' inevitable confrontation came on a storm-lashed night. Emma, acting on a tip from one of her occult contacts, tracked Olivia to an abandoned church on the outskirts of the city. The once sacred ground was now desecrated, the walls dripping with viscous, foul-smelling liquid that Emma refused to identify. As Emma pushed open the heavy wooden doors, she was assaulted by the stench of decay and the metallic tang of blood. Olivia stood at the altar, surrounded by her disciples, some living, some clearly dead but still moving. The demon twins' eyes widened in recognition and then narrowed with malicious glee. "Sister dear," Olivia purred, her voice a discordant mixture of honey and gravel. "How kind of you to join us. Have you come to pledge your allegiance?" Emma stood her ground, fighting the urge to flee. "Olivia, this has to stop. You're destroying everything, including yourself." Olivia laughed, the sound sending shivers down Emma's spine. "Destroy myself? Oh, sister, I've never been more alive. This world took everything from me, and now I'm taking it all back." As Olivia spoke, tendrils of dark energy began to swirl around her, reaching out towards Emma. The air crackled with malevolent power, and Emma felt her skin blister where the darkness touched her. Instinctively, she raised her hands, and to her amazement, a shield of golden light erupted from her palms, pushing back the encroaching shadows. The twins stared at each other in shock, equally surprised by Emma's display of power. In that moment of confusion, Emma felt a surge of memories that weren't her own, flashes of Olivia's painful past, the abuse, the loneliness, the desperate deals made in moments of utter despair. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she finally understood the depth of her sister's pain. "Olivia," Emma choked out, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have found you sooner." For a brief moment, Olivia's demonic visage faltered, a flicker of the scared little girl she once was shining through. But then her features hardened once more. "It's too late for apologies," she snarled. "The world will burn, and you with it if you stand in my way." What followed was a battle that shook the very foundations of reality. Olivia's dark powers clashed against Emma's light, their energies intertwining and tearing apart the fabric of space around them. The church crumbled, Olivia's disciples were incinerated, and still the sisters fought on. As the battle raged, Emma realized that her power alone wasn't enough to stop Olivia. With every blast of energy she deflected, every wound she healed, she felt her humanity slipping away. The cost of using such power was becoming clear. To defeat a demon, she would have to become one herself. In a final, desperate move, Emma dropped her defenses and rushed towards Olivia. Before her sister could react, Emma wrapped her arms around her, channeling every ounce of love, forgiveness, and shared pain into the embrace. The contact sent shockwaves through both of them, their shared blood and shared power creating a feedback loop of cosmic proportions. In that moment, suspended between light and dark, the twin souls intertwined. Emma saw every moment of Olivia's life, felt every pain and every moment of despair. Olivia, in turn, experienced the love and warmth that had been denied to her for so long. The sheer intensity of their connection was too much for their human forms to bear. As the first light of dawn broke through the destroyed church, the dust settled to reveal a single figure standing amidst the rubble. Neither Emma nor Olivia, but a perfect fusion of the two. Her hair was streaked with silver and raven, her eyes swirling pools of sapphire and obsidian. Both scar and birthmark glowed on her palms, pulsing with power. This new being looked out at the world with eyes that had seen the depths of both heaven and hell. She understood now that true power lay not in revenge or protection, but in the balance between light and dark. As she stepped out into the awakening city, she knew that her work had only just begun. The fallen angel and the risen demon were now one, and the world would never be the same.